I am a serial killer? I was a serial killer? How would you introduce that in a conversation? Do I still have to say, I am a serial killer, if I haven't killed anyone in a while? Can I say, I was? Because technically, I still am a serial killer. I've killed multiple people. And I'm pretty sure that classifies me as a serial killer. So, am I? Or was I? Someone please let me know. Anyways, was a serial killer. But not anyone famous like Jack the Ripper, or the Zodiac Killer, or the Vampire of Sacramento, Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, Charles Manson, may he rest in peace. Although, I suppose Manson was just a lunatic, and not exactly a serial killer per se. I'm dormant now. Anyhow, I haven't killed in a while, never got caught. Sometimes I do wonder though, if I started killing again, would they classify me as a copycat at first? And if so, how long would it take them to realize that I'm back? I'm getting off track here. I'm not writing this to tell you about myself. I'm not that stupid. I'm writing this to tell you about the people who I have killed. I don't know if that's more stupid than telling you about myself, but hey, I guess we'll find out together. I just feel like I need to tell someone. And this isn't exactly something that you could bring up on a Tinder date, you know? I mean, could you imagine what would happen if you were just sitting down, having dinner with someone, and you start telling them about how you murdered their mother? Oh, that would go over real well. I suppose I've rambled on long enough. So, here we go. I'm going to tell you about my first murder. My first victim, my mother. So sit back, grab a blanket, maybe some popcorn, or some wine, and enjoy. My mother's name was Grace. She was a beautiful woman. Even as a child, I thought my mother should be a princess in some faraway land, living in a castle surrounded by jewels and wealth. My father was somewhat out of the picture. He and my mother had separated when my mother realized she liked women instead of men. My father took it fairly well, and ended up marrying again, a woman named Angus. She wasn't as beautiful as my mother, and I know he knew that. I lived with my mother for a few years, and then my mother began dating a woman named Annika. She moved into our house with us. Annika was nice and kind and also rather beautiful. She didn't force me to try to have a relationship with her or anything, which I think is what made it so easy for me to get along with her. She was like a friend. Grace and Annika got married after dating for about 2.5 years, and they were happy. For a while, at least. Turns out, Annika only wanted my mother's money. When my grandparents died, they left all their estates to my mother, and they were rather wealthy people. After Annika and my mother had been married for 8 months, Annika emptied out most of the money in my college fund and ran off. My mother was mortified. I was angry. I was angry at Annika, but also at my mother, though I don't know why. My mother didn't do anything. She had been robbed, and the love of her life had left her. She became depressed and started drinking. Soon, our neat cookie-cutter house became a dumpster for beer bottles, weed, and cocaine. I had to drop out of school and get a job to raise myself. After that, I resented Grace for it. She was no longer my mother. just Grace. It angered me that she was robbing me of my youth by making me take care of her while she stayed home snorting coke like her life depended on it and using beer as a chaser for her vodka. That's when I started thinking of ways to kill her. It was simple. Killing an addict always is. Got a heroin addiction? Shoot them up with a lethal dose, and no one will think twice about it. Alcoholic? Just pour alcohol down their throat until they die of alcohol poisoning. But I didn't want to do that. I didn't want it to be that simple. So instead, I gave her some sleeping pills and alcohol to knock her out. Then, I strapped her down to the kitchen table, took a hatchet, and hacked off all of her limbs. I started with her feet, actually, and at first, it was quite the task. After the second foot, however, it all sort of melted into one swift movement, and before I knew it, her hands, feet, calves, arms, thighs, torso, and head were all on the floor, and there was blood everywhere, and bones slightly sticking up out of random body parts. I put all the parts in a black garbage bag, and then put the bag into a second bag to ensure that none of the blood would spill out. Then, I got an idea. I took the head back out of the bag and spent about an hour taking all of Grace's teeth out, one by one. Then I mutilated her face to make it harder to identify her if someone happened to stumble across her body. I broke all of her teeth and put them in a bottle, then went to work on cleaning all the blood. I didn't clean the entire house, however. That looks a little too suspicious. Instead, I cleaned up all the blood and threw some bottles and cigarettes around, making it a mess again. 2 days later, I told my boss I was going camping up on the west side of the woods, and I took off in the opposite direction. Then, I dug a deep hole. Deep, not wide, and I put her body in there. After I was done, I looked around for a dead bird. I didn't find one, so I had to end up killing one myself. And before I fully covered the hole, I threw the bird in at the top and covered it up. After that, I drove back to the west side of town and made sure that people saw me setting up camp and fishing. When I went back home the next day, I called the police and told them that my mother was missing. They never found anything.
Thank you for watching. I always appreciate the support you show me, and I'm forever grateful for it. Hope everyone had a wonderful day. All my social media information is in the description box below. All the story, music, and image information is below as well. And don't forget,